Okay, the beginning after the end. I watched 6 episodes, and one of them at 1.5 times speed. It really felt more appropriate. I had hopes for the series, I really did, and only because the author was inspired by Mushoku Tensei in the beginning, but that's besides the point. I don't know how it progressed past the first 6 episodes, I genuinely have not heard anything about the series after the animation debacle. Funny thing, they're going straight into animation. If you look very closely, like very closely, you might need some glasses, you could notice that this show is animated. At times. Without a close analysis, I'll state that there are more scene cuts than there are different frames per scene, putting aside the CG effects because they have a high frame rate. Okay, maybe there are like 3 frames per scene on average, counting lift flaps and everything. Look, I watch shit isekai. The animation there is nothing impressive, but here it's just deplorable. I can't stand watching something that, by the words of the characters, is supposed to be intense, and it not being close to that. At least it has animation. Sometimes. 2.5. Genuinely don't know whether watching this or reading the manhwa is better. You could say the animation sucks, big downside to the anime, but the manhwa is just still images. And they themselves don't look great either, at least in the beginning. If you really want to experience the series, there's no right choice. Maybe go with the novel, but most of you likely don't like not having images to assist. That's on you. Writing. As I've read a bit of the manhwa, I can give you that perspective. It seems to have mostly everything that has been covered by it, with a few extras and only a few cuts. Is the writing good? It leaves a lot on the table. We have first-person narration from Arthur or Gray or DMC, and it is heavily relied on that. I'm a big advocate for a good balance between showing and telling, and in this case we are getting a bit too much telling. Keep that to the novel. This is a fucking anime if you forgot. If I tell you to bring me steak, you don't bring me fish steak. My mistake for coming to the fish store? What the fuck? It's slower paced and lacking a more serious vibe which would really support the story quite a bit. 5. Soundtrack. Standard fantasy vibes, a bit too quiet and lacking impact. It doesn't have the power to amplify the already bad visuals it is paired with. 5.5. Stills, quite bad, just look at what is on screen. Besides the characters not having the most detail, the amount of detail they do have is kinda random, and they also stand out a bit too much from the backgrounds which themselves are mediocre at best. There's also a bit too much bloom at times. 4. Uniqueness. You got that key thing being part of magic power and shit, the rest is standard bad isekai. 3. Oh, the total is 4.17, and surprisingly that is not the worst this season. Personally I'm giving it a 3.